Hi y'all, it's Michelle with the Southern Shell. Let's get creating. Thank you, Lord, for this nautical wreath that you have given me the vision for, that I was able to take items that I had on hand, leftover items from other projects, and create something that is going to be beautiful in our home. All that I have is from your gracious hands. The embellishments that I have created over the years, the stuff that I've made them with, you have blessed me with. From sprays that I've made to kits, you have given me the creativity. That comes from you, Father, from you alone, that I can see things and make different things with them. May my thoughts be guided by your Spirit alone, so that I can continue seeing, that I may be transformed. I may see things through your eyes abundantly in mind, spirit, and soul. I can lean on you. So all my desires become aligned with yours. That way my life is going down the road you have intended for me, that I may not fear. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Okay, let's get started. Look at all these beautiful items that are going to become something totally different. Okay, we have some of the nautical wood die cuts from Dollar Tree. We have Gorilla hot glue sticks, highly recommended. I have a love sign left over from the Valentine's at Dollar Tree. I have the leftover wreath form that I had actually cut off the outer ring. I cut that off when I was making the compass for my husband, and so I was able to use this. I just folded in the leftover braces on the side because that was actually hanging out pretty sharp, so I wanted to fold those in. Used the pliers there, folded it in, and gave it a good squeeze, and it was fine. There wasn't any sharp edges. This is a a twine ribbon. I got that at Walmart. Of course, clothespins. Now, I did pick up mine at Walmart because they had a pack of 100 for $1.97. And then, of course, you're going to need some paint. I have some different ones here, and they're Waverly, and they are chalk paint. I pulled out a few different ones because I really wanted to have a good variety. I didn't know where I was going with this at this particular time. So I have some of the more agave, cascade. There's two different ones there, but they're about the same color, and I wanted to add just a touch of red to the nautical theme here. Of course, I have my wax. This wax will go over, and it's an antiquing, and it'll make it a lot easier to distress, and it actually does give a little seal on your projects. I am thinking about going with this S, which I actually did, and I really am happy I went with the S, which is the initial for our last name. So the first thing I want to do is I want to protect my work surface, and in order to do that, I'm going to use some wax paper, actually some parchment paper. I got this at the Dollar Tree. You can use wax paper, but I'm just going to take this and cover my work area so I don't get any paint where I'm working. I took the clothespins and I laid them out in a circle so I wouldn't have to attach them to find out how many I needed. So this is just all on there. I see that it's going to fit nicely. I don't have to worry about it. So let's get painting. So I started with the color Plaster, and I put a good base coat on the ship, the wheel, and the clothespins, just on half of the clothespins. I only put one coat on there because I really wanted it to still be distressed and that you can see the wood through it. So I went ahead and went all the way around those. On the second half, I used the mineral chalk paint by Waverly, and I did one coat on those as well because I wanted it to be rustic, so you can actually see some of the wood between it. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach these to the wreath form. And in order to do that, I am going to use my hot glue I've got that hot glue gun heating up, and I'm using the Gorilla glue sticks. It does say that it is 5 times more durable, and sweetheart, it is. You can use the glue sticks from the Dollar Tree, but the Gorilla glue sticks hold very well, and if you need to remove them later, you're going to need a heat gun. So let's get these added on. In order to add your clothespins on, you're going to stick them onto that middle ring, but you want it over the top, under the bottom, under the middle, and then over the bottom, so that it is just gripping on that center ring. And then you're going to push it all the way in onto the clothespin, and then slide that clothespin all the way over to where that brace is, that bracket on the wreath form. So be sure that when you're doing this, you kind of start in the center of your wreath ring. I'm talking about the center circle, because that is actually going to give you a little more flexibility. So you can stick that clothespin over the top and then let it grab the center and then put it over the bottom. Can you see there? And then once it's on, slide it all the way over to the edge where that brace is. It will make it a lot easier because that center piece is a little more flexible than where the bracket is, the little brace piece. So over the top, grab that center wire, and then that bottom of the clothespin is going to go over the top of the center circle ring. You're going to do that again and just have them pushed from the center of that wreath form, and then slide it over to the edge. So once again, over, through, and up, and slide it over. So you want to do that, and it can be a little tight, but that's what you want. You want to go ahead and do that. And you're going to put your clothespins on just whatever way you want to. You don't need to have any rhyme or reason, because you want it to be a little bit different. Now those clothespins left me 2 openings, which is perfect because I'm going to now bring in that twine ribbon that I got at Walmart. I believe it was $3.97 for that roll, which isn't too bad, and I really like the look that it's going to give this wreath. You can also use the fishnet from the Dollar Tree. It's just a little wider. The openings in it are wider. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of my antique, I'm sorry. We're going to hot glue these closed right now so that they don't open. Not like anybody could really take it off of here. They're on there pretty tight. But you're going to open that clothespin, put a dollop of hot glue in there, and then close that clothespin on top of it. So look here. You're going to put it all on the inside of those clothespins. You're going to open your clothespin, dollop your glue, and then close your clothespin. So here we go. Open, dollop, close. Open, dollop, close. Open, dollop, close. All the way around. And it's really very fast going. It does not take long at all to do this. And because you're using that Gorilla hot glue, oh my goodness, this is going to stay. If you want to get these off, you're going to have to use a heat gun, and it's going to take some time. Because I did that with my last clothespin wreath. Oh my goodness. So now I'm going to distress these clothespins. Even though I put 1 coat of paint on them, they're still pretty crisp. And so with my farmhouse style in my home, everything's a bit distressed. And so what I wanted to do was knock back the brightness on these clothespins. Even though they only had 1 coat of that paint, they still looked new. So in order to knock this back, I just took my damp paper towel, dipped it in my lid, and then brushed it across there just very gently, knocking that bright color off and giving a little bit of distressing to those clothespins. Now, if you want a little darker colors, just put it on the edges and kind of let it sit there for just a moment. But if you are wanting a lighter, dab it off onto your work surface. You have it covered, so it's not really going to matter if you get that wax color on there. And you can see I'm just grabbing it and I am just pushing it on with my paper towel and brushing it back on, kind of like buffing it. But there's really not a whole lot on there to buff. But you can see that it does not take long at all to change the colors and the actual look of this wreath by adding a little bit of that antique wax on there. I really like the way that turned out. Just continue around until you're happy with the way that your colors are. If you get a little too much and you don't like it, pull out your original color and dab that on a paper towel and buff it on over it. Now, this S I had painted for another project. It was actually going to be a wedding gift sign I was going to make. However, the name of the bride, she goes by a different nickname rather than her name. So I was really not comfortable with how I was going to do it. So I saved the S. It was already painted. I used some Rust-Oleum. It was the metal. Oh my goodness, my brain. The hammered. Woohoo! The hammered, I think it was bronze or brown. And I had spray painted. So it does have some texture on there, which is great. And so I took this wax and I just put it on there with my damp paper towel and then buffed it back off and getting those corners and around. And what that did is it knocked that shine back from that brown hammered spray paint that I had used on this S before. You can see I've done it all around. I've got my S done. I'm pretty happy with the way that that turned out. Just cleaning off any excess, making sure I've gotten around the corners, just in case it is going to be someplace where you can see the actual edges. Trying to darken some of those corners up. And then just buffing it out. It's so simple. I really like the way that turned out. I think that's going to look great there. So now I'm going to go ahead and paint the little wood dies from the Dollar Tree. I want to be able to have the wheel of the ship to be kind of a rich color, but all I'm going to do with that one is use some antique wax. The anchor I want to look kind of like old metal, so I'm going to do a little technique on that to show you. The sailboat, I want to do a little bit more to this to make it a little more distinct by giving it a water line, and that's where the water would actually come up on the boat itself. So I don't need a whole lot of wax, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave my lid open on this. If I were doing a larger project, I would pour a little bit out and then keep the lid back on that. Now, when you're doing a wax over this paint, you really want to try to have your brush going in the same direction all the way around, because those brush strokes can show up. Thomas is in the room. Oh my goodness, he is such a mischievous cat, and he has no grace, bless his heart. He has fallen off of my shelves in my craft room a few times because he gets up there to investigate, and he has no balance. An ungraceful cat. I don't know. Anyway, I continue to put this coat of wax on this wheel for the ship, and I put a nice coat on it because I want it to have that rich color popping through. So continuing to add the wax and making sure I've got the brush strokes all going in the same direction so that I can see it where it looks a little bit textured on that wood. And when I do that, I'll let it sit and dry for just a moment, wipe that wax off and give it a slight buff, and you can see how that has actually transformed the ship's wheel. I am so sorry about the shaky camera. I did not realize that my tripod was leaning against my table. As I buff, I'm buffing you guys with it. But there you go. You can see that it has the distressing along those edges. And it fills in the natural grooves in the wood. So I'm going to move on to the anchor, actually, and I'm going to start with mineral. Mineral is a great base color when you're doing a metal, distressing your wood, even your wood, if you're doing something to make it look like old wood. This is a great base for that. Mineral is, they say it's in a gray family, but as you see here, yeah, it's gray, but it does have a lot of brown undertones, which is really cool. There's a lot of things you can do with this color. So I'm actually going to use this color to create this anchor to look like it has been aging with some water. And when you look at some of the rusty things, it does have a little bit of the blue kind of tints in it. So what I'm going to do is with this mineral, I'm going to brush it on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and use some of the Cascade. Now I have both agave and Cascade out. While that anchor is drying, I went ahead and taped off an edge for the ship because I wanted just a small thin line, kind of like a decorative strip you would see on ships, on boats I should say. So I taped it off, and I'm just dabbing that paint right on over that so that it gives it a nice crisp line. I don't want to paint one direction or another because that paint can actually get under that painter's tape. It's just painter's tape from the Dollar Tree. So now I'm going to go ahead and put on another coat of wax while the anchor and the sailboat are drying. I also used what was left on the boat, left on the brush for the antiquing on the edge of the anchor. When I pulled off that tape, what you want to do is pull it towards the paint line while it's still a little damp. You grab it, you pull it towards the paint line. So now I'm going to go ahead and use the Cascade on the anchor. When I added some more of that antique wax onto the wheel, I did some along the edge of the anchor, and you can see it there that I did use some more distressed wax around the edges and little spots on that anchor. So I'm just coming in with a very dry brush, and I am just hitting this anchor in little spots that would normally have some more water damage on there. So now, once again, very, very lightly. My paper towel's actually a little bit damp, so I dabbed it in the lid and dabbed it off onto my work surface. And I'm just hitting certain spots on that anchor. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to really give it a good buff. So we have the bottom base, which is plaster. And then I came in and did another coat of mineral. And there I go shaking you guys again. And then I came in with some Cascade. Once that was done, I came in and put another coat of that wax very lightly over that. And look at there. I really like the way that turned out. Now onto the ship again. I'm going to come on in and I'm going to paint off, tape off, where I want that mast to be painted. And it's going to be just some of the wax, and I'm going to put it on there the way it's actually on, like the wheel. I'm going to put it on there and I'm going to dab it on, dab, 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 until I get a nice dark coat. Peel it off towards the wet side. And I had dropped some of the antique wax on the white sails, but you pull it off towards the wet paint. Now I'm going to come on down and I'm going to tape off right at the red line, and I'm going to come in with some Cascade, and that's going to be the bottom of our ship, bottom of our sailboat. That's the water line. So when you get in the boat, as long as you're not sinking, that water line is where the water will come up on your ship. So now I have some distressed items to add to this wreath. I'm really pleased with the way this came out. I did use some more of that antique wax and cover that ship very, very lightly. Here I'm taking that twine ribbon and I am going to wrap it around that area where there's no clothespins. I'm going to use some hot glue on the back side right along the bottom ring of that wreath edge, and it is going to go on there. Very generous amount of hot glue. Lay the ribbon down. Same on the other side. You want to make sure that you have one of the jute lines going across there, so you have something secure that you can glue that down to. I'm going to glue up at the top where that ribbon is going to hit at the top of those clothespins. And I'm going to pull it nice and tight, get it glued down there, right along that upper edge, right where the top ring of that wreath form is. Generous amount of this nice hot Gorilla Glue. And then we're going to flip it over, and that ribbon's going to come right down across the top of that. We're going to pull it down and we're going to loop those ribbons down over the clothespins on the opposite side. You see here where I'm just taking where those squares are in that jute ribbon, and we're going to wrap it around to where that other opening is on the wreath, and we're going to use that hot glue again, pull that ribbon around and glue it in place. Nice generous amount of that Gorilla hot glue. Pull up that ribbon right to where we began. Glue it down nice and tight. We're going to flip it over and we're going to secure that down with more hot glue. Look at that generous amount. You're gonna need it. Pull it on down, nice and snug. You're gonna glue it all across there. And once that is all glued down, you're gonna come in and you're gonna trim the remaining ribbon off of here. I feel so funny calling it a ribbon. It's a twine ribbon. So that's what it looks like when that twine ribbon is actually on the wreath. Now I'm messing with it here and I'm trying to make sure that everything is down and in place and deciding where I want that S. Now it is currently upside down for you, so it's right side up for me, so that I can kind of see where things are going to sit. I really like the fact of getting that anchor caught in that net. So I want to find a place where the colors will pop just a little bit and not disappear in the background. And as for the ship's wheel, because everything has that same antique wax distressing on it, I really thought it was going to get lost on this project. But let's go ahead and get the S glued down to where we know we want it. So we're going to go ahead and really put a generous amount of this Gorilla hot glue right where we know that S is going to touch. Get it right on there. Make sure you're level. Looking where you know that S is going to sit. You know we have that opening right there, so putting hot glue is not going to matter, but we want to put it at the top. So we're going to put a generous amount of hot glue right at the top of that S. Once we get that on there, that Gorilla hot glue is really going to hold that down. My hot glue gun has seen better days. Thomas is a very unusual cat. He likes to play catch. He will bring you things and play catch with you. The problem is he grabs things that he shouldn't have, like the ends of my glue gun. He chews on everything. It's like he's teething, and I know he's not. He's 2 years old, but he will chew on anything. So some of the rubber pieces that are on my hot glue gun are gone because he has chewed them off. But I have another one. I just need to get it out. So I'm continuing to just hot glue this down. I really am liking the way that's turning out. So that S is on there. Now I'm going to pop it up and see if there's any areas that are touching that I can actually get that hot glue into, and there is right there. So I push it in there and I hold those two together until that glue cools off and solidifies back into the hot glue stick form. It's not a stick form, but you know what I mean. It gets nice and hot. These are some really hot glue guns, and I love the way that they work. I'm used to the heat on these glue guns. I have had some pretty nasty burns though, so I can tolerate some of the heat. But just be very careful with a hot glue gun. They can do some damage. So I'm going to go ahead and take this anchor, and I am going to see where I want these actually placed. Okay, I'm going to put the anchor right on down the bottom, have it caught in the net. That's what it looks like. It doesn't look like ribbon any longer. Get that nice and attached down there. Deciding where exactly I want that wheel and that sailboat to go. where's the best part for that wheel to pop out. So this is the process. This is the designing process. Just thinking, placing it, where do I like it, where don't I like it. Here it is. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. That really does help my channel. If you're new, welcome. Please introduce yourself below. I'd love to get to know you and so you can become part of my crafting family. Consider subscribing. I would love for this to be built up and become more of a family. If you want to be notified when I upload a new video, if you want to become part of our crafty family, make sure you hit that bell button. That way you will be notified when I do upload a new video. Many blessings, my friends. Thank you for stopping by.